Welcome everybody. Welcome to this webinar on inclusive martial arts. My name is Aisling Clardy. I work at the UNESCO Chair in Inclusive Physical Education, Sport, Recreation and Fitness. And we're bringing this webinar to you in collaboration with UNESCO ICM, or UNESCO's International Center of Martial Arts for Youth Engagement and Development in South Korea. So this is the fifth webinar in a series that are being run, and with a broad the topic is inclusive martial arts. So they're looking at inclusion in the broader sense, inclusion of people with disabilities and inclusion of women and girls especially. And so I'm thrilled to have you to be here today with our panel of speakers. This session is titled The Coach's Perspective, but actually the expertise we have here goes even far beyond coaches. And you'll see for yourself as I introduce each of the speakers. And we have speakers represented here from across time zones in the US, in Ireland, Europe, and of course, all of yourselves here with us today. So whether it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, you're all very, very welcome. If you're here live, maybe you're listening to the recording. And so let us begin. So this session, as I said, I'm going to introduce you to each of our speakers, and they'll take a couple of minutes to share a little bit more about their expertise and their personal and professional expertise. And then we have three very specific topics that we're going to address. And so the first is inclusion and social integration, and martial arts as a tool for that. Then training, disability inclusion training, and some of our coaches here we'll have in particular Colm and Michael will speak on that, and then talking about pathways for competition. And so without further ado, let's dive right in. So I will introduce you to the first guest, and so in no particular order, we have Colm Hooley from Ireland. Colm is the CEO of Spinal Injuries Ireland, and he's a Defence Lab instructor. So Colm, would you take a couple of minutes to share a little bit more about yourself, please?
Hi, Aisling. Sure. Gosh, I've been around a long time. So I've been studying various martial arts for over 46 years. Started back in 1975, probably before a lot of the people here were even born. And for the next 5 years, I trained in Kempo Karate. And then in 1980, I was involved in a serious motorcycle accident, broke my back and ended up with a spinal cord injury. So my martial arts were put on hold for a year while I focused on my rehabilitation. To be honest, back then I thought it wasn't even practical or realistic to get back into martial arts. But an article I saw in a magazine just touched the chord with me and set me on a journey that's lasted over 40 years, learning and training both here in Ireland, the UK and in Europe, training with various martial artists and in different styles. Initially, my focus was just about myself. I wanted to learn martial arts for me as an individual. But then through my work as the CEO of Spinal Injuries Ireland, I saw the value that I was getting learning martial arts. So I introduced self-defense classes for the patients in the National Rehabilitation Hospital, which at first there was a reluctance, but once they saw it's not just about the martial arts, it's about the confidence, it's about being part of something. So my focus initially was just about me, what I wanted to learn, but then very quickly I got more kick out of introducing other people, and that's where my journey's been for the last 40 years, is getting other people and introducing people and challenging instructors, because there's a huge amount of ignorance out there. It's not intentional, but there's, where do I start? How do I teach someone who's a wheelchair user or has a different disability? So as I said, that's what my driving passion has been for the last 40 years. Is that enough for the moment, just to be brief? And
that's wonderful. That's wonderful, Colm. Thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Okay.
And so Michael Shirot, would you like to share? So Michael's from the World Para Taekwondo Instructors Association, and I'll let you share a little bit more about yourself, Michael.
Good morning, everyone. I'm from Vancouver, Canada. I've been involved in martial arts pretty much my entire life, primarily focusing on Taekwondo and Hapkido. how I got on this path of working with individuals and kids with special needs is in the late 90s, I run martial arts schools here in Canada, and we've had kids with various impairments and challenges, but I knew that martial arts is of great value to them, but having them in I guess what we call at that time regular martial arts classes was just not the right environment. So we've initiated, we started like a small group of classes for kids with, at that time I didn't even know what it is, but I think at that time it was primarily autism, and we kind of grew from there. Over the years, it's been about 21 years since I've been facilitating therapeutic martial arts programs. We probably work with, I would say, 3,000 to 5,000 individuals with impairments in Vancouver. Our schools are the only schools that are recognized by the government as a service provider. So we even get funding through various government agencies to run programs for people with autism, Down syndrome, spinal cord injuries, visual impairment, pretty much everyone. I've also, years ago, my vision was to expand, to make it, to globalize what the work I've done. And I work with the World Taekwondo Federation. I've conducted instructor seminars pretty much all over the world. I was working with bringing para Taekwondo into the Paralympic Games. So kind of work on different platforms. But my passion is working with instructors so I can help them facilitate their personal empowerment in themselves and also in their community. So my focus right now is really working with as many individuals as possible through seminars. We have an online instructor certification, or pre-COVID I would travel to different places and conduct instructor seminars as well. So that's kind of where I've been putting my emphasis on the last few years.
Thank you, Michael. Wonderful. So as you can see, all of our attendees, we have quite a panel here today. And so next I'll introduce you to Jungju Young, a Taekwondo instructor and also a PhD candidate in sport and health science, who's studying in Wales right now. Welcome, Jungju.
Hello, everyone. I'm a Taekwondo instructor. As a Taekwondo instructor, I have been teaching various cultural and ethnic background students, such as British, American, German, Dutch, Spanish, Korean, Yemeni, Syrian, Jordanian, Iraqi, Afghanistan, Sudanese, majority people and marginalized people such as immigrants, including asylum seekers and refugees, regardless physical and mental ability, gender, age, occupation, and social position, etc. At culturally different circumstances like South Korea, Yemen, Jordan, and Wales. I believe that this variety of Taekwondo participants in my teaching experiences itself shows the inclusive aspects of martial arts. Thanks.
Thank you, Jungju. And so Dushana, we have a Dushana Agostovich. Oh. Okay, Dushana, I'll allow you to introduce yourself in your own name. So just to say, Dushana is from the Para-Karate Commission. She's the chairwoman there at World Karate Federation. Welcome, Dushana.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everybody. So I have been doing karate for 23 years. I'm a former karate athlete, and now I'm coach and teacher. And I have my own club. I'm the owner and founder of Karate Sports School in Prievidza. And I am teaching at the Faculty of Physical Education and Sports at the Comenius University in Bratislava, here in Slovakia. So I am from Slovakia. It is a Central Europe. And I enjoy teaching sports sciences and statistics, and also coaching karate. And therefore, I am the member of the EKF Technical Commission and WKF Rules Commission, and especially now I am the new WKF Para Karate chairperson. So I'm really good in organizing. And I hope we will develop the para karate, and we will be in the program of the Paralympic Games soon. Thank you. I really appreciate that you invited me here.
Thank you. And we're delighted to have all of you. Thanks so much, Dushana. And so last but absolutely not least, we have Matthew Hanley from the UK. He's a para karate coach. So welcome, Matthew. Can you share a little bit more about yourself, please?
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me today. My name is Matthew Handley. I started karate when I was 9. I've been doing it for 31 years now. And I practice a style of karate called Bushido-ryu, which has, like Colm said, it's got Kempo aspects of it in like old Korean Kempo. I've represented my country for karate, so I used to represent as an athlete for England in 2005, and obviously I run my own karate club, and I'm the head of my own association, and more recently I've been the ambassador for disability karate within the English Karate Federation, and 2 years ago, just under 2 years ago, I became the England national para karate coach to help obviously develop para karate in England, and obviously where I'd like to see opportunities for everybody to be able to take part in our sport of karate, and I want to provide opportunities for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Wonderful. So to all of our viewers and attendees, you know, we have some rich conversation. I'm sure you can gather lots of different perspectives that we have here, from coaches to chairwomen from the federation to, you know, Colm with his experience having practiced and then experiencing disability and injury, and then going further, and also the trainers component as well, that both Michael and Colm bring in there as well. And I'm really glad, Jungju, to have you on to start the conversation. You know, Jungju is going to start with the first topic and looking at the broader aspect, because, you know, when we consider the value, and this is something that has been coming up over the course of the webinar series, for those of you who have been following the entire series, you know, the broader values and benefits of martial arts, and in particular our session on tradition and inclusion. This came up quite a bit, you know, the role martial arts can play for including everybody, and going beyond even, you know, while the focus of this webinar series is people with disabilities and women and girls, that there's an intersectionality there, and everybody has the potential to be included and for social cohesion. And so I'm going to pass the floor over to Jungju, who's going to start that conversation for us. So welcome, Jungju, whenever you're ready.
My experiences abroad, such as Yemen and Jordan from 2006 to 2016, and in the UK from 2016 to today, are valuable assets that make me recognize the importance of social integration. It includes the positive experiences of warm hospitalities received from the Arab and Western friends and families, and at the same time, the negative experiences such as racism and cultural shock. Meanwhile, in the past 14 years, the positive and negative experiences by teaching Taekwondo to people of various ethnic and cultural backgrounds, such as Arab, Asian, African, European, and North American, have surprisingly become stimulants and nutrients for research in this field, whilst having master's. Through the writing master dissertation, I tried to find whether Taekwondo can contribute to the integration of migrants including refugees, into the newly settled hosting country through promoting social capital, bonding, and bridging capital, which is essentially based on trust, as Putnam claimed. Bonding capital promotes social cohesion within the groups, communities, and societies. And bridging capital is about the connection and solidarity between groups, communities, and societies. As a result of my study, I concluded that Taekwondo can contribute to social integration as it fosters social capital. Furthermore, I strengthened the founding by explaining how the forming identity as Taekwondo-in, who has formed the identity of Taekwondo practitioner, plays a positive role in promoting social capital from a sociological point of view. Identity is approached through the idea that all of us have multifaceted identities, which offer the possibility for us to recognize the otherness in ourselves and sameness in others. Developing a Taekwondo-in identity helps social integration because in most cases, it represents a third party or neutral identity which practitioners can develop and share as a common identity, and in so doing, provide a platform with the process of recognizing sameness and otherness. This can contribute to the reduction of the conflict and tensions caused by othering. The founding mentioned above led me to be interested in trans-culturalism and cosmopolitanism. These academic concerns delivered me to the motivation of having a PhD course. In terms of social integration, trans-culturalism is a meaningful sociocultural concept that transcends the limits of multiculturalism, assimilation, and melting pot theory. According to Epstein, transculture transcends the borders of traditional cultures such as ethnic, national, religious, gender, sexual, and professional, and overcomes the isolation of their symbolic systems and value determinations, and broadens the field of supracultural creativity so that migrants integrate into the new hosting places. Significantly, he proposes the boundaries of our own culture and at the crossroads with other cultures as the supracultural field where we acquire transculture through the risky experience of our own cultural wanderings and transgressions. From this perspective, the following mention of the role of Taekwondo by General Choi, having this vision of the future, the East and the West united in Taekwondo together. This martial art was a source of affirmation to all religious, races, ideologies, and nationalities, has a noteworthy meaning in that Taekwondo can be reinterpreted as a cultural space of traditional variation, whether it is international or regional, as transcultural space. Moreover, for Pratt, the place of occurring transculture is contact zone as supracultural field for Epstein as described as follows. Meanwhile, our job in the Americas course remains to figure out how to make the crossroads the best site for learning that it can be. We are looking for the pedagogical arts of the contact zone. According to her, contact zone is defined as a social spaces where cultures meet, clash, and grapple with each other, also considered as the models of community that many of us rely on. I would like to argue that the core of the above-mentioned scholars' transculturalism is the mobility of culture, which is the crucial characteristic of transculturalism, presenting the intercultural dynamic in the multicultural context. Taekwondo장, Taekwondo Center or Club for Taekwondo practice, which is the specific social space for the embodiment of Taekwondo culture, can be regarded as a supracultural field and contact zone where transculturation occurs creatively. There is dynamics among cultures, Korean culture as the original culture of Taekwondo and other practitioners' cultures, ethnic, national, gender, age, etc. in Taekwondojang, in which occur actively and complexly tension and conflict, mutual understanding and tolerance, and translation and transition. Also, the cultural dynamic which arises in the exchange of various cultures foster social integration as it excludes cultural supremacy and creates cultural equality. Furthermore, the essential characteristic of cosmopolitanism is that all human beings are equal citizens of the world and therefore should be treated equally, and each of us should treat others equally. In martial arts, including Taekwondo, everyone is equal in the field of martial arts training. However, the fact that there is a formed hierarchy between instructors and practitioners does not mean that practitioners are not treated equally. Rather than, we can see the achievement of equality in the structured and relatively relaxed hierarchies based on relationships of trust and friendship. Also, the coached gap in the performances depending on the intensity of training or individual abilities can be dealt equally with the practices according to the abilities. For example, we can manage the teaching ways and circumstances so that higher level practitioners can help lower level practitioners. On the other hand, the idea that cosmopolitanism is that all individuals are equal, irrespective of status such as economic ability, gender, religion, sexual orientation, ethnicity, etc. And the fact that martial arts, including Taekwondo, transcend all discrimination and exclusion in the martial arts tradition. We can find the essential value of cosmopolitanism in the tradition of martial arts, in the figure of bowing to each other, wearing same uniform, regardless of all the differences mentioned above, with shared cultural practices. Paradoxically, the fact that martial arts, which have destructive energy, can help practitioners overcome inner risks such as war trauma and outer disability inherently or caused out accidents, and also restore the sense of safety and achieving physical safety through forming a martial artist shows that martial arts can contribute to the real peace of the world. It can be considered as a widened definition of inclusion against hate and exclusion. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jungju, for your presentation and for, for sharing that broader context. And because I know, as I hear you speak, and I know I've read so much research about the role of, other martial arts and even any kinds of physical activity having those same benefits for social integration and even beyond, as you were saying, to all marginalized groups, and considering the intersectionality of how, for some people they can experience different discriminations that intersect. And I'm wondering, do any of our other panelists, would anybody have any comments or anything to add to what Jungju has shared, or questions even?
I think the fact that he highlighted how important the inclusion of people is, too often disabled people can be marginalized. And if disabled people can feel part of a community where people see beyond their wheelchair or whatever disability they have, that in itself is gold. It's so important. So it's not just the martial arts, it's the being part of something and people seeing beyond their disability. Because as we all know, too many disabled people are isolated within their community. So this is just one other way of including people. So I totally agree.
Absolutely. It's far too often people with disabilities are excluded from physical activity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is why we're here. And does anybody else have anything to add, or is this a natural segue into the next section of the conversation where we're going to be moving in, from the more academic and conceptual conversation into the hands-on training, practicing, including and training coaches? Are we ready? Yeah, so Colm, maybe you'd like to start that conversation sharing a little bit more about yourself and your martial arts journey and your transition back and how your current path has unfolded for you.
Sure. At the start, I just touched briefly on my background and how long I'd been training in various martial arts. I suppose really just to start here, one of the things I wanted to say is one of the driving forces for me is the self-defense aspect of martial arts, because through my work within the disability community, whether it's in Ireland or in Europe or further abroad, I've seen a significant increase in hate crime against disabled people. So for me, the added drive in developing and developing martial arts for disabled people is the fact that unfortunately trends are changing and hate crime is going up. Just to give one statistic, in 1 year alone, hate crime against disabled people went up by as much as 75% in 1 year. So that has been a catalyst for me, both on a personal level and then, as I said, through my work initially with Spinal Injuries Ireland, and since retiring from there, my focus has been on developing a course that's accessible to both the individuals and, as important as the individuals with the disability, is instructors. Because to go back to my own experience after my accident, one of the biggest challenges was finding anyone that would actually consider teaching me. And those that did in the initial days, some of the stuff they tried to teach me just wasn't realistic or practical. So it was a huge amount of trial and error, being knocked down in my chair, pulled down in my chair, pushed down in my chair. And as I said, it gave me an insight into how important it is that we're honest. In other words, the individual with the disability has to be honest about their ability, so that when they go and learn something, they get the most out of it. But as important, it's important that instructors are honest with what they're showing somebody. It's, for me personally, it's so important that what we're showing people is real and effective, rather than just going through the motions. Just to give a quick little story that kind of set me on a different journey. About 2 years ago, I got an email from a mom in America, living out in a rural part of America. She'd read something about the martial arts I was doing, and she was saying her little boy, who was 10, who was a wheelchair user, wanted to do martial arts, went down to the local club in the nearest town, and the instructor had said, I would love to teach your son, but I don't know how to. I don't know how to teach somebody in a wheelchair. So it kind of got me thinking, how can we support instructors around the world? So just before I linked up with yourself, Aisling, I just finished filming an online course with Defence Lab. We've worked on it for the last year. So that's what my focus has been on, is developing something that individuals with a disability can access, but as important, instructors. Because as I said, I think there's a huge willingness, but I think an awful lot of instructors, just same as the general public, how often have the general public been scared about how they interact and deal with disabled people? So we have to support the martial arts community so that they can include disabled people. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely, Colm, absolutely. And you know, I can see, I know the work that you've done has been immense in that department. And I know Michael has also done a lot of work in that space as well. Would you like to come in and share a little bit more about your perspective, Michael?
I think this is the first time I'm hearing CALM, which is, we have a lot of, I think, similar ideas and methodologies. For me personally, I went from teaching Taekwondo from the sport point of view, or para Taekwondo, to now my focus is on the therapeutic component, using martial arts as a tool, as a therapy form. So a lot of our kids who come to our schools, and we're working with literally hundreds of children right now at our Taekwondo schools, martial arts schools in Vancouver. We have a wait list. We cannot accommodate. I don't have enough instructors, to facilitate lessons. So there's such a huge demand for classes for children, especially children who are seeking ways to improve themselves, or the parents are looking for platforms for the child. So I went from like Taekwondo as a sport, or high performance sport, trying to get to the Paralympics. And I know we have some para karate people here, which is fantastic. I think it provides a lot of opportunities and platforms for expansion and global awareness. But my pathway kind of veered a little bit to the side, where now, not using Taekwondo as a sport, but using Taekwondo as therapy. And I feel that's a lot more successful in terms of getting access to the kids, getting access to funding for programs, either the parents getting funding or ourselves getting funded. Providing opportunities for instructors. All of our instructors are paid staff. This is where this is their career. So they're working, getting paid. We're at the same line as a physiotherapist, an occupational therapist, a speech and language pathologist. We're viewed as a partner in the child's development. So that's kind of where I've taken that path a little bit different, and focusing on that and trying to educate instructors of how to be a facilitator of personal growth through martial arts. So a couple of things like I said, I do seminars and in person and online, and I'm just looking at that. I just don't want to miss anything. I think what the key is, how to educate instructors. The first thing is we have to dismantle people's fears. So like Colm said, a boy in the States goes to a karate school, a martial arts school, taekwondo school, doesn't matter which school, the instructors, has the heart to do it, because I feel most martial art instructors are passionate about what they do. They want to help. They want to help people, but they might not have the skill sets to do it. So that the child goes to to a karate school. Mom wants it, willing to pay the tuition, but the instructor's like, "I'd love to, but I have no idea how to work with you." And if we can kind of dismantle people's fears, the instructor's fears of and letting people, martial arts are naturally more I would say ego based. There's a lot of pride and ego, like I have to know it all. And if we can let the instructors know and the school owners know, like, you don't have to know everything. There's a lot of education out there. It's not even martial art related. You can Google what's autism, what's cerebral palsy. You can go to the library. Pretty much now everything you can find on the internet. Or you can join webinars. You can there's so much information. But the first thing is to dismantle your fears. Someone's in a wheelchair. Okay, how do you adapt it? I train my instructors of telling them, always do what's best for the child. So do no harm and do what's best for a child. So if you have to adapt, then adapt. I think a lot of times there's some misconception about tradition in martial arts, and people say, well, we cannot, if they're kata or the pumse or the pattern has to have 2 punches, but if one person has no arm or has he's an amputee, he cannot do punches, or someone in a wheelchair cannot do kicks, then we have to be able to adapt it, and it's totally okay. It should be okay. We have to be able to adapt it, and you have to be able to adapt it to what is best for a child. So when I'm teaching instructors, like, okay, here's the child, here's the student, what can we do to help them out? And so that's kind of the main thing that we want to have, that mental I'm looking for a word. Change our perception of what martial arts is and what it can be. Ultimately, it's to help as many people as possible, mentally, emotionally, physically, like that. Like I said, I went away from, even though there's self-defense training and there's a need for that, but we're now focusing on, okay, the child has challenges walking, the child has challenges focusing, listening. So we have these programs in place where we can teach a child how to focus better, how to listen, how to have self-control of their emotions, self-control of their physical body, disciplining themselves. So all these kind of things. And some of it is reward-based, some of it is just personal development, all of that kind of stuff. So that's kind of my perception. Sorry, give me 1 second, please. Another thing for how we educate instructors is that everything has to go from the personal victory, not meeting a standard, but their own personal standard. Just like in school, like in our academic school in Canada, the children with special needs, they have an individualized learning plan. So if they're in grade 5, but perhaps intellectually they're not a grade 5, they're maybe a grade 2, the program, the educational system has created where it's adapted to the child's stage of development. And we have done exactly the same thing with our martial arts classes, with our martial arts school. If a child, if this is a requirement, let's say, to get to green belt, and they have to do this, this, and this, whatever it is. But certain kids cannot do that. They don't have the mental cognition, understanding to do their pattern on their own time. So we have someone assisting them, they're someone mirroring them, or whatever it is. So everything is to adapt to make it a success for the child, for the student, and that's kind of one of the things we do. If we have instructors here listening in, if you can introduce positive life skills, you'll be a lot more successful in your programs. Because realistically, the moms and dads are looking for a place for the child to be a part of, to develop their skills, but ultimately to develop their emotional and mental and physical attributes. How can you, as an instructor, how can you teach them about discipline or self-discipline? How can you teach them about self-control? So when we teach our kids, and all martial arts are great, and it really doesn't matter what you're teaching. We will say, let's say we do like, punch, punch, punch. So instead of them just doing punch, 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 we're going to say, I will focus. Instructor will say 2, I will listen. 3, I will, whatever it is, incorporate those words into our teachings. So then that when the child hears it over and over and over and over, focus, 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 persevere, 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 it becomes part of them. And that's how we can take martial arts, integrate them into the classes, and ultimately they integrate it into the child. And that's the one of the therapeutic components of it. Any questions so far? If you want to post something or.
Well, I have a question. I was going to come in. I would love to hear a little bit more, and I think maybe the attendees would also, about how did maybe both you and Colm, how did you start out? So you thought, okay, this is my vision. I want to start offering classes and programs for people with disabilities. Where was that first step, and how did you, attract people, or did you decide to, was it initially inclusive, people with and without disabilities, or was it just we're focusing on people with disabilities? And what was that journey like, and what were maybe even some of the challenges that came up for you? And, I know we have people from all around the world here. So obviously there's the context may be different, but, I think even hearing your insight, both of your insight on that might help somebody else. And because some people have asked on previous webinars of, in their country, there's nothing. So where do they start? And I'd said, well, maybe they could be the ones, that need to start. So please share. You can go first, maybe if you want to continue, Michael, and maybe we come back.
Sure, okay, great. So this is my most, pretty much everyone asked me, how did I get involved? And now I really believe this is my calling. This is what I'm here to do. But how it started was in the late 90s, I was teaching classes, and we did have some kids with special needs in our core program. And I knew that they needed extra support. And you have a class of 20 or 30 kids, and those kids didn't really benefit from that environment. Even though I knew what we teach is positive, but it's just the environment wasn't the correct environment for them to shine. So we started a separate class, or like our special needs martial arts class, where we kind of focus on, it was a small group, and focus on their personal development, break down the curriculum, adapted to their needs and so on. And then from there, it just kind of grew and grew and grew and grew. So as I accepted it and I become more involved with it, in a way, more pathways opened up for me. We went from a very small group to hundreds of children. A couple of years later, I thought, okay, I'm pretty comfortable and confident working with kids with intellectual, developmental impairments. I want to work with people who are blind. I actually, in the past, I never even met a person who's blind other than on the street. I have no idea. So I blindfold myself and I started creating curriculum. And doing the research. Back then there was no, Facebook or Google. It's like you go to the library and read books, whatever there's available. So start doing that. I contact local, blind organizations and like, hi, my name is Michael Shirot. I have a sightless self-defense program. I want to share with, your participants. At that time, didn't know anything, and just, they were willing to come out, and we started a program for people who are blind. Then later on, wanted to work with people who are with mobility impairments. Same thing, we contacted our rehab hospital in Vancouver. Of course, before a lot of research, a lot of planning, a lot of my own development, and then start, sharing programs. And that would be more like self-defense oriented, because we also teach Hapkido. So learning about, teaching them the joint locks, joint manipulation, things like that, where it can be applicable to someone who's with a spinal cord injury, who's a paraplegic or quadriplegic. So it kind of went from there. But it was all kind of my initiative. And it's, like you said, if someone in some country, in some city, they don't have anything, go for it. The people are waiting for you. Like there's abundance of kids and adults who would love to take part in martial arts. You just need to have the confidence to take the first step and to go for it.
Well, and I really like what you said there about, well, what I hear in what you said anyway, was that, you took one step at a time. So first maybe focus with one group.
Correct.
Because that's something we advocate for as well, at the UNESCO chair. When it comes to inclusion, you don't have to jump into the deep end. You can take steps where you feel competent and gradually increase your competency. And
right. or even start doing private lessons. Do do one-on-one. Start doing private lessons so you get more comfort. The instructor gets more confident, comfortable, and then eventually lead to group lessons. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's that confidence, and kind of coming back to what you said, Colm. Or I can't recall actually, but I know, Colm, I think you said this at an early point, if not today, overcoming the fears, because sometimes, coaches can have fear, not of people with disabilities in my experience, but more of the fear of doing the wrong thing, the fear of maybe causing harm, that's probably the biggest concern, and the fear that it's actually a lot harder than it actually is. It really does boil down to you're in the mix with, you're learning, you have to try by error. And figuring it out as you go. How about you, Colm? Would you like to share a little bit more about, just for somebody else maybe who might be starting off, or how they can actually get going and start working with people with disabilities?
Sure. I suppose I was very fortunate during my own personal journey to relearn martial arts, but also because I was the CEO for an organization of people with spinal cord injury, and I was based in a rehab hospital. So straight away, I had access, if access is the right word, to individuals who might be interested. So that made that element of it very easy. In other words, there were patients there. It was only a matter of reaching out, telling them. The challenge was actually getting the patients to see beyond what they saw as their limitations, as in, oh gosh, I'm in a wheelchair now. How am I going to do martial arts? But what I found with either individuals or getting instructors involved, once you cross that line and you can get a couple of individuals within a rehab hospital going back up to the ward and saying, do you know what, I actually can do these things, that sets a motion and gets more people involved. The same with instructors. When on my own journey, and then when I wanted to get instructors to help, and the amount of goodwill was huge, but the challenge was, as I said earlier, was they just said, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I shouldn't say. What are the terms I should use? And to be honest, that's where I think there's a relationship between the individual and the instructor. It's when I would go into a new school, a new martial arts, or go on a course over in England or in Europe, first thing I would do is go up to the instructor, introduce myself and say, look, I understand that you may not have worked with somebody in a wheelchair. I'm going to just watch what you're doing. I'm going to take out of it what I'm going to learn, and I'm going to talk to you. And once you do that, communications is key. There's an openness. Invariably, when I did these, whether it was in Europe or in the UK, at the end of these classes or seminars, I was very privileged because these instructors would usually come over and spend another hour just working with me because they'd seen, okay, this guy can do this, and they wanted to learn as well. So to go back to how do we include people or get people involved, just reach out, go and ask. It's a journey for both the individual who maybe wants to start it with a group and instructors. And as one of the other speakers says, there is stuff online now. You need to be selective. But I mean, I'm more than happy, and I'm sure some of the other people here today, to be available. If people want to ask questions or whatever. And again, as I said, it's about starting. What I found was when I decided that, yeah, I've got so much out of it, and I wanted to bring it to a bigger audience than just the patients in a rehab hospital, I reached out to a group of guys in Defence Lab who had no understanding or experience of working with disabled people. I traveled over to Valencia in Spain and met them. And again, the same as whether I've been in Britain or Ireland, they're so open. They want, because as someone else, one of the other speakers said, martial artists are passionate about what they're teaching, and they love the idea of including people. Invariably, they'll always say, I just didn't know how. So as I said, I've never found a reluctance. Once or twice there's been a fear, and they were so afraid they didn't want to do it. And that's understandable. But by and large, if you reach out, talk to people, Andy and Greg, who I met and traveled to Spain, and said, listen, I want to work with you guys to bring a program to people around the world, but I can't do it on my own. I need your support. I've been learning what you guys are teaching, and I want to bring it to a wider audience. They could have turned around and said to me, well, listen, this isn't our scope, this isn't our skill. I've spent the last year with both Andy and Greg. We've spent our life on Zoom and webinars and sending videos back and forth. And the time that they've given and that they have learned, it now means that we're going to bring a course online to people around the world. But again, just to go back to your initial question, how does somebody start? There's loads of information out there. Reach out to people and ask. And if that means linking up with an instructor and both of you don't know where to start, support each other. Like when I started, I was very fortunate to meet a martial arts instructor in Northern Ireland, Martin O'Neill. And he came down to the rehab hospital and he turned around to me and he said, I don't know what I can teach you. I don't know what you can do. I'm still working with Martin 22 years later, and I'm an instructor with him. And that's been a journey for both of us. So what I'm saying is reach out and find somebody you can work with. And as I said, they're out there. They're just waiting to be asked.
Thank you, Colm. That's fantastic. You know, I think it's so important what you're saying. You know, you just have to take the step. That's what I'm hearing what both you and Michael are saying. You just have to start somewhere and reach out to people. But I also hear as well in a lot of what you're saying is it probably keeps it very fresh. I'm pretty sure if you're continuously learning and if you have to learn to meet the needs of your group, I'm pretty sure coaching in this way never gets boring anyway.
Absolutely, never.
Being always creative. And as you say, there are a lot of resources available. And I'm also just putting in the chat as well, there's a link to UNESCO ICM have an online module as well. That is just a few short units that share a lot of information about how to operate more inclusively. And as Michael, you have your programs in Canada. I see there's a question coming in here from Stephanie Stevens. She's saying, are there any specific certifications available, if not for individual martial arts, but for inclusive training in general? So there is, I'm not sure, it's not the UNESCO ICM one is there, but maybe Michael, given that Stephanie's in North America, at least, I believe she's in the US.
Yeah, she's welcome to reach out to me. I can provide her the links to what we do. Or I can say now, I'm not sure what's appropriate.
Yeah, you can mention now, that's okay.
You can go to parataekwondo.com.
Fantastic. And that is your qualification, that's more of a broader martial arts in general, or did you say it was specific?
I'm working on it right now, so it's in development.
Oh, okay, fantastic.
It's therapeutic martial arts. Yeah.
Okay, and Colm, would you like to say a little bit more about your course? Well, we'll give you a little plug.
Sure, it's with Defence Lab. So if you just go on to the Defence Lab website, you'll get details about it there. Or as I said, if you want, as I said, I can give my email address if people want to reach out directly to me. I don't have a problem because it's something I'm very passionate about. So if you're okay, maybe I can give out my email address. Is that okay? Yeah,
if you wish, pop it in the chat. Can you pop it in the chat there? Just make sure you press to panelists and attendees, because I was responding there to all panelists earlier. So just make sure, if you're having difficulty, let me know and I can do that as well. And if you're listening to this, you know, if you're watching this on YouTube, there will be a slide at the end where you can, with contact details for each of our panelists.
I might let you add that in. I'm not as technical as you are.
Okay, so. That's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. I do have one more question actually, and this was a question that came up on one of our previous webinars that we did address it at the time, but actually, Colm, maybe you might have some further insight. So one of the attendees had asked, he was a martial arts practitioner and actually I believe coach, and his friend who had also been practicing martial arts for quite some time, he also was in an accident and was now paralyzed from the waist down. And his friend was at the point where I think that what you were describing, he was still at the point where he wasn't seeing it as a possibility for him, you know, given that he had been so competent at martial arts before. He had already been practicing. Maybe a lot of the people you're with hadn't practiced in the past. Sure. So he had already practiced, and then he became paralyzed, and so he still wasn't at the point where he was seeing it as a possibility, and this attendee was asking, did we have any advice? So could you speak to that maybe in any way?
I suppose as somebody who was like him involved in martial arts before my accident, and as I said, my injury would probably be fairly similar. I think the key is if he gets to see some techniques that are real. If he's done martial arts before, he has an understanding and awareness. So again, this is down to honesty. He needs to link up with an instructor, give them a brief understanding. You know, one of the things I've done with the course is we've taught the instructor briefly how to access and assess somebody's ability. If he does that, talks to them about, listen, my balance is so much, my level of injury is quite high or my low, talks about his balance, and then just goes through a couple of techniques. When I started with Martin or with Andy over in Spain, by and large, he could show me 10 techniques, and I, at the end of it, would turn around and honestly say, 5 of those will work, the other 5 won't work. So it's about the individual you're talking about being honest with the instructor, and it's a little bit of trial and error, but I guarantee once he starts on that journey and sees what is possible, he will be really surprised at what he can do. And once he starts, it just spirals, as we all know. Once you get an insight and a passion, and once he sees that it's real and it's not just going through the motions, I think as I said, once he starts on the journey, there'll be no stopping. But just honesty, both on his part and the instructor. Say to the instructor, that doesn't work. You know, when people showed me techniques where it was the technique had to be up here, I was saying, I can't reach somebody up there. There's no point showing me something like that. My level is down here. So it's about honesty and communications. But once he starts, if he loved it before, he'll love it again, guarantee.
Lovely. What I'm hearing, you know, a lot of the training programs that I develop, I usually incorporate in one way or another, you know, in terms of the interpersonal skills and, you know, how to facilitate that relationship. And Carl Rogers, who's considered the father of person-centered approach, and he has 3 core conditions for this person-centered approach. And one of them is empathy and honesty, or well, he calls it congruence, but it's really that authenticity and being real. And the third one then is unconditional positive regard, which is respect, essentially. So I'm hearing that in what you're saying, really. It is about really working with the person, isn't it? There can be no Absolutely. Other way other than the person-centered approach in this way, is there?
Yeah. And then very quickly, the instructor sees beyond the person's disability. They forget that the individual, or, you know, the wheelchair or the crutches or whatever the disability is no longer an issue. And it becomes a journey for both of them to work around that and facilitate it, rather than it being a challenge or a barrier. It becomes a journey for both of them to explore and find ways to negate the injury or the disability, as I said. And once they start on that journey, they'll both enjoy it, both the instructor and the individual with the disability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really insightful point, because, you know, I think if the instructor is seeing this potential in the person, that if they might still be in the shock of having had an accident and the shock of, oh, I can't use my legs now anymore, that they might not be seeing that potential themselves. They may still be seeing it as something very negative, you know, and having difficulty coming to terms with it. But if a coach is seeing something inside of them, it might be easier to awaken that inside of them themselves. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Colm. Would anybody else like to add anything? You know, we'll be transitioning to the third topic soon, but maybe Jungju, Dushana, Matt, is there anything you'd like to add to the conversation? Any further comments or even questions?
I really like Michael's work. It is unbelievable. You are one step forward before me. I have tried the blindfolds 1 year ago and started the same. So we have the same vision.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dushana. I saw we had a second panelist there with you for a little while. You had your little somebody young with you.
Yes, but my daughter is awake. So
oh, that's your daughter.
Crying in the next room.
Wonderful. I thought she was going to join us and share some wisdom.
She will destroy my computer.
Lovely. Jungju or Matt, anything you'd like to add? Are you okay?
Just like, it's really interesting listening to Michael and Colm, but it's true. It's like it is a person-centered approach, and how you adapt to things. It's a constant evaluation of your own skill set, because every single person is different. So it's like, how do you adapt to that person in front of you to be able to obviously coach them? But really interesting listening to how both Colm and Michael sort of got that point across, because it's true. If there's something that's there in front of you, you've got to try and find the road around it, and that's how things become easier and things like that when you're coaching. So really interesting to hear that.
Yeah, a problem-solving approach. And even I think, Jungju, in terms of what you were sharing about, immigrants and people coming from other countries, I think too, there is some crossover too, in the sense that sometimes people could be coming and not speaking the language and finding a way to adapt and to make people feel included in that way as well. Do you have any thoughts or anything you might like to add?
Yeah, well, so I think most of martial arts have the very essential key value is that we respect others, right? So in terms of respect, we can consider to teach any person who wants to learn our martial arts. So yeah, in this respect, yeah, I am very impressed with your sharing. Yeah.
Thank you, Jungju. It is respect, isn't it? I think respect it works really well with inclusion, isn't it? When you're really seeing everybody with the respect. Oh, I just muted myself. Every single person. So thank you. And so how about we move on to the next conversation. So we're speaking about pathways for competition, and so Dushana, would you like to come in and share with us about the work that you're doing, the classification systems and governments, etc.?
Yeah, thank you for the floor. So I will show you my presentation. I am a woman, so I like pictures and colors, etc. So I will present para karate and karate as well. So let's talk about karate. As Colm said, that it's a passion for me. It's a social sport and it's a lifestyle. So I really enjoy doing karate, and I think that everybody has to have a purpose in life and must have the possibility to do the sport. It doesn't matter if it is taekwondo, karate, or track and field or something else. And the sport takes people out from their isolation, and this makes people happy. The old father, Gichin Funakoshi, the old father of karate, said that karate or the martial arts are not only about victory or defeat or fighting, but it is about building the perfect character. So it is not easy to do the martial arts, but it works. So you can achieve your goals every day, and not only in the martial arts, but in everyday life. And this is the main point, I think. So this is the reason why to do or to start with karate or taekwondo or another martial arts. So I'm the WKF para karate chairperson, so I will talk about our organization, and I can say that we are a recognized recognized Olympic sport and also Paralympic sport, and now we are also members of the Virtus organizations. And next week we will have our debut on the Olympic Games. So we will have our first athletes in karate in Tokyo next week. The main benefit of the para karate is that it is connected directly to the able-bodied organization. So we have almost 200 national federations, and it means that we have 5 continental federations, and WKF provides world championships every 2 years, and we have 3 continental championships, Pan American, European, and we will have for the first time Asian para karate championships. I hope it will be this year and it will be not postponed for the next year. So if you want to do karate, you can join a club in each nation around the world, because we have very good structure. We will have a debut in 2 disciplines, and one is free fight kumite, and the second one is kata. It's something similar like pumse in taekwondo. And for Olympic Games, we do it only in solo, but for World Championships, we have also team competition. For now, WKF provides only a kata competition, and it looks like this. So we have tatami, and the athlete performs the kata, and the 7 judges evaluate his or her performance according to main criteria. And first one is technical, and the second one is athletic performance. And 2 highest and 2 lowest scores are crossed out from the total evaluation. The final evaluation of the kata consists of these 2 factors and the extra score. We still keep extra score because we don't have enough sport classes for para karate athletes. We are developing sport, so we hope that we will have more sport classes for all athletes or with many kinds of disabilities as soon as possible. But I will talk about this a bit later. So karate is also very cheap sport because we don't need any other electronic equipment. You need only karate gi, obi, it's a belt, red or blue, because for competition it doesn't matter if you are black belt or a yellow belt. And for physically impaired athletes, we use a wheelchair. So wheelchair is mandatory. I spoke that we don't have enough sport classes, so for now we have only 4. The first one is for visually impaired athletes, and this is the reason why these athletes have to use blindfolds. And the second is for intellectually impaired athletes, and now we are members of the Virtus organization, so we provide for these athletes 2 sport classes. First one is for athletes with moderate intellectual impairment, and the second one is for athletes with more severe impairment. Physically impaired athletes must use the wheelchair. So I hope in the near future we will open the 3rd category for standees, not only for wheelchair users. Everything depends on the evidence-based classification. So we try to follow IPC recommendations, and everything is already prepared in this classification information sheet. And I hope that we will have much more in the K30 category. So it depends on the number of registered athletes. Each change is towards to the Paralympic Games. So I work with the previous rules and the previous work from the previous chairman, and I focus on what we have, and I'm trying to do it much better and to write the application form for especially for intellectually impaired athletes and apply for the Paralympic Games 2028 in Los Angeles. So what is already improved or implemented. So we have split our rules into the kata competition rules and classification rules. We follow here the IPC model rules, and we created also the shortcut of this classification rules, and it is the info sheet I showed you before. Now we have also para karate ranking, and we will have first points after the World Karate Championships in Dubai this year. I hope we will have it because it is in November, and we will see the situation around the world. And we have introduced a new registration procedure, especially you need to have a Virtus eligibility, I mean international eligibility. So your data are protected online on the WKF sport data server. And we are working hard on the education program, and we already had a webinar for European Karate Federation. And what is in progress in WKF? So it is a research and evidence-based classification, as I showed, and the education program for coaches, classifiers, and the quadrennial program. This is very hard now because we have a COVID, so I cannot plan the competition for next year now. And we are working hard on the master list, and this master list and regulations and administrations of classifiers will be published maybe next month. I hope so. I will see. And all these documents are available on WKF webpage, so you can find all regulations and also medical diagnostic forms and other forms which are necessary for registration for competition. And also the new documents will be available here on the WKF webpage. Maybe I will touch the idea of Colm. He was talking about the problem with the coaches for martial arts. So for karate, you can have also your personal assistant during the competition. He is guiding you during the whole competition, and you have also there the coach. So this is a very good idea. So you can have this personal assistant all the time during the training. It means you don't need to prepare some extra class or some extra training for these athletes. You can do the same or adapted exercises for the new para karate athlete, and his or her personal assistant will help you so much. So don't worry, coaches. Don't worry. The personal assistant or parents will help you. Just open your mind and don't shine. You will do it. If you like karate, you will do the best. And what is new again? We have the same number of medals for para karate competition. Before we had only 3, but for karate, able-bodied karate, we had 4 medals. It means 2 bronze medals. So I was fighting hard, and now we have 2 bronze medals also for para karate athletes in all sport classes. So I'm very happy about this, and it means that we follow also the same competition format. So we don't have only 1 round, but if we have enough athletes, we follow the same competition format as able-bodied athletes, with some exemptions. So if we have intellectually impaired athletes, they can perform only 1 kata. It's okay. So this is the new registration system. I think this is a slide for especially para karate coaches, but you can see that everything is new and more comfortable, and also the administration is much easier for para karate. And this is next new. So now we are using sport classes and not only a factor system. Your sport class is confirmed or under review or with a fixed date of review, but you have also the compensation score. It is from 0 to 3. It depends on the level of the disability. So we try to fix this. It is not the best way, but for now, because we don't have enough sport classes, we try our best and using the special classification manual to compensate the level of disability. And this is the biggest benefit of WKF para karate. We don't have the special event for para karate. So the para karate is directly on the able-bodied competitions. So our para karate athletes are not segregated. They are fully integrated into the able-bodied competition, and we have live television and full house of audience if we don't have COVID also. We don't want to extend too many categories because for now we have the World Championships for 5 days, I think. It depends on the number of participants. So I hope we'll have more sport classes, but not too much because we need to have this kind of inclusion. And my last idea is that together we achieve more, and it means that not only karatekas but also other coaches from other martial arts, because martial arts is only one art. Thank you for attention.
Thank you, Dushana. And it's very interesting to understand the structures of how this works if somebody wants to go, if coaches are going down the competitive route. I know in many cases people want to do it just for participation at the club level. But of course, competition is something that many people with disabilities like to participate in as well. And are you familiar? I know that Taekwondo and Judo are also Paralympic sports, so obviously they have some sort of similar system as well. Yes.
Yeah, I studied their regulations documents, and it is very similar. So they helped me so much. Thank you, Taekwondo.
I think what you're doing is amazing. That's great. That's awesome. If I side note, but if I can be of any assistance, I'd love to work with you guys. And I'm also for Virtus. I'm actually the one who initiated Taekwondo into the global games, and I'm the president of the Virtus Canada. So if you have any if need any support there, I'd be happy to provide that. I think it's wonderful what you guys are doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Well, and Matt, would you like to share with us, because Matt also is, working for the World Karate Federation and doing his part in the UK. So would you like to share with us a little bit more about your work, Matt, and all that you're up to in the world of inclusion?
Yeah. So I've since been made the national coach for the para karate in England. It's still in its really very early stages. It's a massive honour to be the first ever one, and it's like I think it's one of them things, like going back to what everybody said. It's constantly learning every day, which is it's fantastic. In terms of it, like within England and in my country. And obviously in the UK, we've got a strategy to try and increase the participation of disabled people in karate, to allow us to develop as athletes, to compete on like a European and world stage, but not just that, also to try and do it like down at grassroots level, which to try and obviously include everybody. We've had representation 2 Europeans and 1 World Championships, which has obviously been great to help promote para karate throughout our NGB and throughout obviously the UK as well. We've now set up a small squad of athletes who fit into more of the classification categories, and with the hope to see them represent England at some of the next upcoming events. I've found working with the para-athletes is so rewarding. It's very exciting to see the growth, obviously, of the people and the squad, and with such a variety of abilities. It's very challenging, but that's what makes it really, really rewarding. We've been working like quite closely with the Activity Alliance, which is the the branch of Sport England to do with obviously parasport and inclusion, and obviously we've been trying to develop and do as much as work as we can to try and make us better as an NGB and become more inclusive. I think there's lots of areas that in karate for improvement and encouragement of inclusion from grassroots, which will help us grow as an NGB. But I think as a coach, and going back to like what Michael and Colm said, I think it's, if everybody does their little bit to do with like inclusion and trying to help promote it, that's what makes this better and makes more opportunities for people with disabilities. Obviously within my sport of karate, that's what my driver is, to try and see as many people do disability and see karate for everybody.
Thank you, Matt, for sharing all of that. I just want to share with all of you, so there's a lot of really positive feedback coming through. You know, I just want to add, people are saying very well done, Dushana, for all you're doing with para karate. And you know, there's a lot of, you know, feedback coming in for this, just for all of your insight and everything that you're sharing. I am wondering, Matt, are there any, you know, challenges that you found, you know, being the lead in the UK, that maybe you were surprised with, or there were just big challenges, and how have you navigated them? Because everybody's going to come up with challenges, especially if you're leading the path or you know, taking that charge.
I think it's just knowledge, especially like, and for myself as well, you know, I've learned in the last 2 years quite a lot. And when you go back to like with Michael, and when he said about coaches learning, and it's one of them things. I think you choose to be an inclusive coach, and then, you know, I think you've got, once you have overcome that, you know, and when you've got that confidence, it's like, how can you let others see that it's not as hard as it actually makes it out to be? And it's just about, like Colm said, taking that first step. And that's one of the things that I think's been quite hard to share, that what is that? How can you go, and how can you be an inclusive karate coach, or how could you, you know, accept people within in your sessions and things like that? And it's just I think it's just trying to help grow that awareness of people. I think that's one of the things that challenges I've come up against.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing. We're coming close towards the end of where we reach of our time together in this webinar. I'm just wondering, before we start to move into the final summary, does anybody else on our panel here, would anybody like to input anything, or anything that's come to your mind as you've heard anybody else speak? Feel free to just unmute and come in.
Maybe I would like to say that this is very good webinar, because I can meet also other specialists in the field of martial arts, because usually I meet only karate people or the people from the university, and this is very nice opportunity to meet Michael, Colm, Jungju. It's perfect opportunity. Thank you very much. I could be here.
Thank you. Well, and it sounds like that you're in that learning mode mentality as well. I think when you're in inclusive, working in the world of inclusion, you always have to be in, it's a lifelong learning road, isn't it? Because we're always learning. Absolutely. And at one point, sorry, Colin, to cut you off, but at one point you might think, no, you're inclusive of this group, and then you might realize, oh, I haven't been consciously including another group, so there's more to learn. You know, it's a constant learning, isn't it? So go ahead, Colin. Colin.
No, I was just agreeing. It's a constant. It's a journey, and you learn every day.
Mm-hmm. Which I think can be very reassuring too. You know, when you start off, because you can't, you could be working years in the field and might not have it all, but it really, I think the key is to all of that is when you remember, look, I don't need to have all the answers. Once I actually connect with my athletes or my martial artists and work with them, that's where you find the answers. You don't have to have them all stored in your head.
And also to add to that, I feel we're even this environment right now, this opportunity is so inclusive in a way. We're trying to bring people in with various impairments or promote it. But what we're doing now, even like for there's Taekwondo, there's self-defense, there's karate. It really doesn't matter. It's all, we are actually facilitating that inclusiveness as well. We're taking part in it in this platform webinar as well. And I think it's just, I believe that years ago, it would not have happened, because everyone still thinks, my martial art is the best thing. And, my way is the only way. Where now it's not really about the style of martial art, or even it might be, it's not even about martial arts. It's about, human development and just human transformation and evolution. And we're here to, the panel people and the people who are listening in, they want to they want to grow. They want to see what else can we do? How else can we broaden our own awareness, our own skill sets to become more inclusive society? So I think what you facilitated is fantastic. And, and we're just participants in that inclusion as well through this process.
Well, and thank you. And that's something that I've been really pleasantly surprised about all of these webinars so far, is the level of respect among the panelists and the willingness to even learn from each other. That, and every single panel that we've facilitated inside of this webinar, every one of the webinars, people showed up to learn, not to just come and give everybody, to promote their space. And of course, there's an opportunity to promote too, but it's more of an offering rather than, and I just think maybe this is my hypothesis. I'm not saying this is scientifically valid or anything, but maybe this is just the spirit of martial arts, is my conclusion to all of that. And just to say, so also people have been putting emails and things in the comments. So if you've asked us to connect in the comment, I've been copying everything and I will follow up. And if, I know some people have shared emails to be passed on to other people, so I'll take care of all of that. And so we are coming close to the end of our time together. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank each of our panelists. You've all brought so much to this conversation and different perspectives. It seems like we all have a similar vision. And when we all come together, as you said, Dusan and the team, TEAM, that is where we'll come together. And, we can all be on different places in our journey, but it is a journey. And, when we'll all get there, but, we just have to keep taking steps towards that. But I would like to see, if each of our panelists could finish up and maybe share maybe one sentence or one nugget of wisdom or advice for any of our viewers, attendees, that will support them in their journey. So Michael, would you like to go? I'll go in order of just how I'm seeing you on my screen. Would you like to go first?
I just want to say thank you. Everyone who's listening in is already made a commitment to be here. They're already showing that they want to know, they want to grow, they're looking for opportunities for either for themselves or for their family members. And you're making the first step. And if you're an instructor, and if I can be of any service of assistance, be happy to work with you guys and do my best to make it happen. And yeah, just like someone said, just go for it. It's like everything is possible.
Wonderful. Just go for it. So, Colin, would you like to share, please, your nugget of wisdom?
Sure. Just two little quick pieces. One for the individual with the disability. If this is something they want to get involved in, go reach out, see what's available. There is, which we've seen today, there is opportunities. Reach out, and if the first place you go just isn't able to facilitate you, don't give up. The second thing I would say to instructors is, hopefully watching this, you've got a sense that disabled people are interested and can take part in martial arts. So, maybe don't be as scared about what you can say and what you can't say. Again, as I said earlier on, it's all about communications and working together, and enjoy it.
Wonderful. Enjoy. How about you, Matt? Would you like to share with us?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody. It's been such a learning experience, so much knowledge in this room today. And yeah, like going back to obviously what everybody's touched on is like, just don't be scared of obviously trying to take that first step and get involved. And there's like a quote that I really like, which is diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance. I really like that quote.
Beautiful. That is, I like that quote too. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Jungju, would you like to share with us your little nugget of wisdom?
Thank you for thank you for having me in this amazing webinar. You know, I've learned a lot from you guys, and then as a final comment, I'd like to say martial arts can contribute to inclusion against hate and exclusion with the spirit and practice of respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jungju. Lovely. I appreciate that. Dushana, please share.
I think this was a very nice seminar and I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward for the next one. I hope you will organize another one as soon as possible. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm wondering, Daeyoung Lee from UNESCO ICM, she's on here. Did you hear that, Daeyoung? They want another series. Thank you, each of you, all of you, for sharing for saying yes, for being in this room, as Matt was saying, this room together, which is really all around the world, you know, and the interconnectedness of it all. And it's been wonderful to be with you all in here. Just like Jungju, I've also learned so much from each of you. We all have so much to learn from each other. And so this is the webinar 5 in this series. We do have some further webinars. There's another 4 that will be available to the public. The next one is Tuesday on August the 3rd from 5 to 6 p.m. at UTC, which is Coordinated Universal Time. And that one, we will be speaking with some more coaches who will be sharing a lot more of that, about that person-centered approach in terms of including people with disabilities and also including women and girls. So we'll dive a lot more into that, into the actual more creating that social environment and looking at some of maybe the biases that we may have that may get in the way of operating inclusively. So we'll see you there. And of course, this webinar will be on YouTube, on the UNESCO Chairs page. It will also be on UNESCO ICM's platform very shortly, or as soon as possible. And thank you everybody for attending, all of our attendees. We've had people from around the world, from Kazakhstan, India, Malaysia, the USA, so many countries, South Korea, I think Mexico. So we've had people from around the world. So we're so grateful that you tuned in with us. You took your time out of your day, morning, evening, night. And of course, once again, to all of our panelists, wishing you all a wonderful, wonderful day. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.